join me. It drives me crazy. All the way in. There's chairs. If not, we can pull out another chair. We got chairs here. There's chairs. I just like just the way the brain works when we're sitting outside the group. It's like we're outside looking in. I want you guys to be a part of the meeting and fully engaged. All right. Who's having a great April? Couple of things. So this hat right here, just on a side note, this hat right here that's used for recognition, I was in a fraternity. This was back in the 80s when hazing was not only allowed, it was encouraged, right? And the greater the hazing you were able to put up with, the greater the rep that you had. But hazing, like, it was a double-edged sword. So, like, you had to do pretty much whatever the actives told you to do, right? So one of the things in the dormitories, because the cafeteria food was questionable at times, so a lot of us had our own microwaves and hot plates and stuff to cook our own food and our own utensils and plates and stuff. So sometimes the actives, I'm going to be mellow with you. I ain't going to any extreme stuff that will make you think twice about me. Crazy stuff. I'm just going to go like mellow, like this is very acceptable. If you're recording me, it's not too bad, right? Sometimes the actives would have us wash their plates and stuff after they'd use it and bring it back in, right? So I would go in and wash their stuff in the sinks in the bathroom. I wouldn't necessarily rinse it in that water, though. If you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
shame on me. They're treating me like a pledge, right? They're treating me like some sort of indentured servant. Like so. Now they could always, when I brought it back, they could always offer to feed me something on that plate, so it's a risk. It's a double-edged sword, right? Sometimes if they weren't sure, they'd play you back like that. But all I'm saying is, anyone that comes up in future meetings and wants to touch this recognition, buyer beware. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Buyer beware. Okay, you may want to run from that recognition because I look on it much more lowly than I do an actives plate. Just for the record, okay. Just so we get that clear. So I didn't give the actives a forewarning. At least I'm giving you guys like a forewarning, right? That should be appreciated, right? First of all, didn't Deanne and Tim do a terrific job?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Really terrific job. I want you to think about just how much Deanne has grown in her past couple of years with us. Like, I know, like, her getting up and speaking in front of a group is not something that she had a lot of experience doing prior to us joining us. Something that she didn't feel real confident or convicted about. Something that she was always, and yet, once she got through the, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say, like, once she got through that, like, she was just polished, like, great points, very well-structured, well-articulated. It was like, yeah, I was just sitting back and I was just sort of basking in how much she's grown as an individual. Like her associate promotion that she just picked up, she got 3 direct recruits in the past month. That's a reflection of how much she's grown on the inside. What happens to us on the outside is a reflection of what's going on the inside. And it gave me like a deep sense of not only pride, but a deep sense of joy and sort of seeing how much that she's grown. And when you hear her talk about all of her responsibilities, like, it was almost an understatement. Like she's got so many responsibilities, and yet one of the things I appreciate about her, she's always got just such a joyful heart about doing all of those things. Really, just when I get into her, like when I'm talking to her about all the things going on in her day, like all the details, at some point I'm like, crap, I'd be like complaining like nobody's business, right? I've never heard her complain once. 3 years, I've never heard her complain about anything. And if somebody's got a right to complain, like she would be somewhere on that list, right? She's got stuff to complain about, but she's just joyous, and I appreciate that about her. And it also goes to show you, if she can do it, you can do it too. Like she got 3 directs this month, what about you? What about me, right? She's got 3 directs, and you heard like the guest that she's got today. That's not including the guest that she got today. The guest she got today wasn't because she's got some sort of special warm market or some sort of special magic. She just talks to people as she goes. She doesn't have time to go out prospecting. She doesn't have time to make as many calls as some people, but she just talks to people as she goes. She just shares the message. That's all she does. It's almost like spam email. She's just a spam message sharer, like live and in person, right? And some people block her and some people delete her, but others like actually take the time to listen to the message. and then some people actually take time to respond to the message, so.
The guest had mentioned when Ricky and I had met her, do you remember what she said? She goes, I'm actually looking for a sales job so I can spend more time with my family.
She said that to me too. She said that to me too. So here's the thing. It's a numbers game, and it's about finding the right person. When you deal with small sample size, a small group of numbers, you feel like you're trying to convince people. When you talk to a lot of people, then you have people like that that are almost trying to convince you that they should be a part of this. Like, I hope they hire me. I hope they interview me. And it's not a matter of your skills being better. It's a matter of just talking to more people.
Christopher, too, the space that she's coming from is just a space of just loving people and just wanting to share a message. It's not that she needs her
Right.
or wants
Right.
her. It's just like, look, this is an awesome opportunity. I love what she said. This. I love what I do. I want you to come down and see it. Like, okay.
And yes, that's great. And she literally, she doesn't want it for herself. She wants it for them. She's like, this would be so great for you. Like, she genuinely believes this would be so great for you. This would be such a great opportunity. Like, oh, you could really do well here. You could grow here like I've grown here. That's not what she's saying, but you can tell that's what's in her heart, right? Mabel, will you come join us, please? We want you to be a part of the meeting, too. Thank you. And then, like, Tim, you can tell a shift took place, and here's what I heard him say. He didn't say it this way. You may have heard him say something else. He talked about his wife coming into business and really supporting him, and how, like, some things shifted as she started. Here's really code word for what he's saying. His wife showed up and started paying attention to his results. Right? Right? Before that, he was like thinking a lot. I got to get all these things perfect. I got to know everything. And his wife showed up and was like, babe, you're spending all this time. Like, where's the results? We need some results, right? And so he just became more accountable. That's not a shot to him. Like, that's the way life works. That same thing happened. The more that my wife got involved, that she knew, like, okay, Tuesdays and Fridays is when I'm supposed to see a new commission cycle on the website. If I don't, my husband's doing something wrong. I don't care what he tells me. Like, right? Like, show me. And so, that's real accountability. Tim can choose to be accountable to Dean. He really doesn't have a choice with his wife. She has expectations of him, buoyed by a sincere belief in him. She has no expectation of him failing here. Like, she can't imagine him failing here when she sees all the yahoos that have made it here, right? So it's like, I know he can win here. I know he should win here. So he needs to start getting results that are consistent with him winning here. Like, in her mind, there's not an excuse in the world that would allow him to fail here, because she believes in him. She knows how smart he is, how talented he is, how strong his people skills are. He's charismatic. He's good looking. So, like, in her mind, like, it's just basic math. It's impossible for him to fail here. So he should be getting results. And it's not, why isn't he getting results? It's like, he should be getting results. Does that make sense? Sometimes we ask ourselves, well, why is this not working for me? Why am I not getting results? And your brain is this unbelievable supercomputer, and then it creates all these answers for you to just a bad question that you asked. You asked the wrong question. As opposed to, how can I increase my results and really enjoy the process? Like Deanne, like, then your brain will come up with all kinds of answers to how you can enjoy the process like Deanne and get better results. Sometimes we're asking ourselves, well, why isn't this working for me? Or how come I'm not this far yet? Or why don't I know this yet, right? It's the wrong question. So be careful, right, of what you say to yourself. Be careful of what you say to yourself. So the accountability was a big part of it, right? Clearly with what Tim was saying. Here's the other thing that he was talking about, though. Getting back into his real market, the people that he'd really like to be in business with, the people that he'd really like to be clients, the people that he'd really like to be getting referrals from. And I just want you to think about this for a second. I'm not here to sort of preach or expound my moral values on you, but I want you to consider what are very strong principles or values that you hold. Like, for example, if you're pro-life, for example, on the abortion issue, right? Let's say you're pro-life, as an example. I'm not saying you should be. Let's just say that you are. And people that you work with, or friends or family, like, don't believe that and think that you're an idiot for thinking that, does that change your view about it? Yes or no? No. Does that change your view about it? Yes or no?
No.
So sometimes yes. Most cases, no. Most times, like, no, like, this is a principle, this is a value. I'm standing on this truth regardless of what they think about this issue, regardless of what they think about me standing behind this issue, right? You can take that to any major issue today, right? Any major issue today, maybe it's like racism, that's talked about like today. So, like, you've got to stand for racism, right? And I just believe, like, no matter how we discriminate, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's color, whether it's gender, whether it's sexual, whatever, like, I just believe that everybody should have equal rights. I don't have to agree with somebody's decisions, but I agree everybody should have equal rights, for example. And other people around you have different views that are more judgmental, or they see things from a different, you just stand on what you believe to be your truth. Is that true or not?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. So part of what Tim is saying is, like, he just came to his own conclusion here, like, hey, like, this is a great business. A lot of people have created a great life and a great career for themselves here. It sincerely is about helping people with their finances and getting ahead, helping people with career choices and extra income. Like, I'm standing on this truth. Other people may challenge my opinion on this, or my participation in this, or my stand on this, but I know what the truth is, and their opinions aren't going to sway me from the truth. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now he's coming from a place of conviction because he believes in what he's standing on. And I think sometimes, sort of like Kim was saying, if it's not really a value that we hold, if it's not really something that we're taking a stand for, then other people's opinion can change our opinion about things. And we become more concerned about their opinion about things, right, than about what we stand for. You look at a couple of the candidates running for the 2020 presidential campaign right now, and some of them, it blows my mind. There's a couple of them that have literally come out and said this. When asked about how, what their stand is on certain positions in politics, a couple of them have said, you know what, I want to really wait, and I really want to hear what the people have to say about that, because I want to represent the people. Which means I have no moral standing on these issues whatsoever. Just whatever seems to be the most popular, I'll ride with that.
Right, yes.
I mean, that's in essence what you're saying, and that's where some of us ride our WFG careers. Like, I'll be as into this or as committed to this as the people around me dictate. Their support or their doubting of it is going to sort of dictate sort of how I flow in this. Does that make sense? So that's not part of this morning's stream, but as I was sort of listening to Tim speak, I just thought you could feel the certainty and conviction that he had, and it just resonated differently with me this morning. I was just appreciative of that. One other thing that he said, I actually was taking notes when these guys were speaking. He talked about his irrational thoughts that he used to have, right? And how his irrational thoughts kept him from contacting these people who he knows would be great clients, great associates, great centers of influences, great people that he could like network and get referrals from. So his irrational thoughts kept him from taking action in the ways that would benefit him the most and ultimately could benefit them the most. And here's just what I want to caution you about, okay? And this is going to sound like I'm being just silly, but I'm being sincere. There's nothing wrong with having irrational thoughts. Just choose the right irrational thoughts. Choose the irrational thoughts that support your goals and what it is that you want to achieve in life, right? Like, what would be an irrational thought that would support a goal you have in life? Like, you irrationally thinking that my spouse is the greatest spouse that ever walked the planet. He or she's the most attractive, the most caring, the most there's no way I could have found a better spouse in the world. Could that be possibly an irrational thought compared to 7 billion other people? Yes. But is it an irrational thought that would support you having a long and happy marriage if that's what your expectations are of them? Yes, right? So it's okay to have irrational thoughts. Just don't have ones that are incongruent with who it is that you want to become and what you want to achieve. Right? Does that make sense? Is this the English speaking group? Yeah. I know, like, Adam was out till like 4 a.m. last night because he told me about it. I don't know what's up with the rest of you guys, but I'm excited to be here and Adam's excited to be here, so I'm good with that. I want to talk, what are Saturday mornings in the second quarter about?
Building!
Recruiting and building. Recruiting and building a team. So I want to share with you guys, I've been studying the numbers of our hierarchy recently. I want to share with you guys some takeaways that I've gotten that I think are really, really helpful in your perspective about recruiting and building, your intensity and your focus. Like, when I'm thinking about Deanne, it was fascinating. She listed all of her responsibilities, right? Her husband passed away 4 years ago, and he was the main provider. He was right. She was a stay-at-home mom. They have a bunch of kids, right? Aubrey, how many kids, not including you?
4.
So there's the favorite child and then 4 other siblings, right? That's a lot. So she had that responsibility, and then her husband was the primary breadwinner. Then he passed away, and so now she still has 1 favorite child plus 4 other siblings to raise. Plus she's got financial responsibilities. She's got 2 pretty severely handicapped people that live with her that she cares for 7 days a week. She's got a lot of church commitments and responsibilities, and then she's just very service oriented. With all these responsibilities that can be overwhelming for most people, she wakes up every morning and what's her first thought?
Now it's what can I do for my business?
What can I do to grow my business today? And if you paid attention to the way that she was saying it, it's not a disregard for these other things. That's not what she was saying at all. What she was saying was this: I already know me. I already know I'm going to do my best as a mother to my favorite child and these 4 other children. Right? I already know me. I already know that I'm going to do a good job of giving care to these 2 individuals who are entrusted in my care.
Right.
I already know that I'm going to fulfill my church responsibilities. I don't have to wake up thinking about, am I going to do that or not first thing this morning. I already know that I'm going to try and be service oriented and make a positive contribution to my community.
Right.
I don't have to think about doing that. That's in my nature. What I do have to think about doing is, how am I going to grow my business today in addition to those things? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Some of us get so focused on the things that are automatic pilot for us, that are an automatic habit, and then we never sort of have a thought like, what am I going to do to grow my business today? Because we're so caught up in the day-to-day busyness of life, right?
Right.
Being successful does not mean being the busiest.
Right.
Being successful means choosing priorities that are consistent with what it is that you want to achieve. Okay? Unless your goal is to be the busiest person ever, but busyness is not often equated with productiveness. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Whoa. Okay, so like that kind of a mindset is critical to becoming a recruiter or a builder. So I want to share with you some numbers. I've gone through a bunch of numbers. I just want to share them with you because I'm hoping that it'll change your perspective a little. I covered this a little bit on our conference call yesterday, but there's other things that I want to sort of there's other numbers that I sort of want to go through. So these are Daniel and Chandler Holt. Now Daniel and Chandler Holt are 2 they are what I would call a rabbit. They came on the scene right away and were making things happen. They are sort of overachievers, okay? When I'm looking at all of these 6-figure income earners in my hierarchy, all of these SMDs in my hierarchy, and studying their numbers, their career numbers, what I'm looking for is, here's what I'm looking for. I think I got a blank page right here, if we did this right. Got this, Warner?
Yeah, he went into the conference room.
So here's what we're looking for.
You need them?
I know, no. I know like Tim and Dean will know what this is.
Oh, it's the primary, the doodle, the early adopters.
Bill Caldwell, thank you. It's standard deviation. It's called the what curve?
Bell
The
curve.
bell curve. This is the bell curve. And what it says is that if this is your median, what's a median?
Middle average.
Not the average.
No, it's not the average, it's right in the middle.
It's right in the middle.
There's mean, median, and.
Right, so the median is the middle point. If there's 100 different results, it's the 50th result, right?
Yep.
Right.
And then the standard deviation is, what is the norm? In other words, 80%, that wasn't very good. 80% of your results are going to fall right in here.
Yep.
Your outliers are going to fall out here and here, positive and negative. Most people are going to fall within here, or if I look at one of my SMDs, or if I look at one of my $100,000 plus earners' careers, here's what you'll see trends for most of them. their personal production will range from here to here any given year. Every once in a while they'll have an outlier where they get in a good marker and have a couple of big cases here. Every once in a while they have an outlier where there's personal things going on or something of that nature and there's an outlier. But the overwhelming majority of them are going to fall within what's standard deviation. So sometimes it looks like they're having a down year, it's just normal variance. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, okay. The same is true then when I begin to pool all of their data together. And I begin to look at what's quote unquote normal for somebody who becomes a top producer, top SMD, top builder in my hierarchy. I don't have the results for the whole company. What's above average, or what we might call, oh my goodness, I did not just spell that way, or what we might call a rabbit, right? And what is, I'm still trying. Okay. I don't want to call them slug, I don't want to call them anything derogatory. You're going to have people down here, huh? Yeah, I tried really hard. But it's true, like, here's what you're going to find. You're going to find some of our top producers had results down here in the early years. Okay? And I want you to look at these through two sets of eyes. And I want you to take some notes because these are the kind of things that just sort of will go in one ear and out the other. I want you to look at it through two sets of eyes. One is look at it through the prism of where do I fit in there? Am I ahead of the curve? Am I behind the curve? Or am I just in the middle of the curve?
Right.
The second way I want you to look at it, the people on your team, where do they fit in the curve? Where do they fit in the curve? Because here's what I know. Just have had too many conversations the past few weeks. People just, and I just hear things, like I heard things maybe that Tim said, maybe that you didn't hear, or maybe you didn't hear it in the same way. I hear things when people are speaking to me about their businesses, and sometimes it relates to their people, and they're frustrated with their people because of their people's numbers, and I go, but wait a minute. Your people's numbers maybe aren't as bad as you realize, maybe you shouldn't give up on them just yet, okay? So let's begin to look at this. So, Daniel and Chandler are going to start their career in this area, above average. Okay, that's what I'm going to show you first. Okay?
All right.
Year one, he does 11 recruits. So about 1 recruit a month personally, and their whole team together does 23 recruits. That's including his 11. Your base shop recruits, this is base recruits or team recruits. Okay? We call your team your base shop here for some of you that are new. This is personal. This is your personal points. I'm going to show you a bunch of charts with the same sort of order of numbers. These are your personal points from clients that you help. This is your personal points plus your teammates' points, the people that you've recruited, added in there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any questions on the math?
No.
So, Daniel and Chandler did about 1 recruit a month, so probably about 3 guests a month personally, and their whole team did about 2 recruits a month, or about 6 recruits a month personally. They did about 3,000 points a month, so about 1 app a month their first year. And their whole team together did 54,000 points, which is about 2 apps a month. So 1 for them, 1 for another teammate. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you've got somebody on your team, and in their first year, like, I want you to just think about it from this perspective. A year of leadership, a year of answering all their questions, calling them up, texting them, sitting down and going through illustrations and doing one-on-ones and hiring interviews and kitchen table presentations and working on role playing with them. Think of the hundreds of hours that you're going to spend pouring into the average individual over the course of the first year. Is it a little bit of time or a lot? It's a lot in most cases, right?
Yeah.
You're putting a lot of time and energy into really growing and developing this person. And then at the end of the year, you look back and go, man, I put hundreds of hours into this person. And what they basically brought me was 2 recruits a month and 2 apps a month. And when I begin to look at my overrides and how much money I made out of that, was it really worth all the time and energy that I put in?
I would say yes, but your brain would say
Hell no.
You're saying in the long run.
I didn't ask in the long run. There is no long run. They've been with me a year. They could quit tomorrow.
Okay, so yeah, you're foolhardy. Wasting time.
Yeah. I mean, so if you're looking, what? Yeah, but the point of an investment, the difference between an investment and an expense is, What?
Sure.
An expense, it's like a transactional type of thing, exchanging one for another. An investment, I'm putting time or money or resources into something and expecting a return greater, oftentimes multiple times. So when I look at the hundreds of hours in a typical year, you think about that, it sounds outlandish, but 52 weeks a year? If you put 2 hours into that person a week, there's 100 hours right there,
Yeah.
right? So the overrides that I'm getting in this and the amount of impact they've had in my business with these whopping 23 recruits, it's like, it's easy to go, man, it's a waste of time. It's easy to go, I'm glad Kim comes to the meetings and stuff like that, but I just don't have any more time to waste on her, really. All she basically does is come to meetings. Every once in a while she gets a recruit, every once in a while she gets a dinky little app. It's just like, she's clearly not gonna be one of the big ones. I clearly have her
Told her to keep
misjudged.
that private.
What?
Told her to keep that private.
I forgot that part was supposed to be confidential, okay. My apologies. That's what I would say, not Dean, of course, yeah. But it's easy to go clearly she's smart enough, clearly she has the talents, she just doesn't want it bad enough. She's not hungry enough, she's not willing to do the work, so I'm not gonna spend so much time and energy on her because I don't wanna waste my time anymore. Is that like a fair rationalization that people could come to?
Yeah.
And people do it all the time. You have people in your business like that? Or sometimes we begin to make decisions like, is this really working for me? Year 2, they do 17 recruits personally, so about 1.5. But look at this, they do 5 a month on their team. Personal production goes up to 80,000 points, that's about 6,000 points a month, 2 to 3 apps a month personally. Team production goes to 160,000 points.
So their team matches that.
Yeah, well, it doubles them. So, and the probability is probably of these extra 81,000 points, there's a good chance that they wrote all or most of them field training these people.
Yeah.
If you understand how that works, right? So, 161,000 points. So they're doing what? That's 6,000. So that's 12. So they're doing about 6 apps a month as a team, right? This is somebody who's what we call a rabbit, that's outside the norms, that like got things quicker. 3rd year, 14 directs, 52,000 points, but look, they get up over 100 base shop recruits, 123,000 points. Year 4, they double down on personal recruiting. Despite, you gotta imagine when this happens, this is more activity than they're used to managing. This is more people, more agents, and yet they double down on their directs, get 2 directs a month, write 105,000 points, have their best personal production year ever. You think it's a coincidence following 106 base shop recruits and 23 personal recruits that they have their best personal production month ever, year ever? It's the way our model works. And then they do over 100 base shop recruits again and look at their team production. 20,000 points a month. That's above average. And if you look at it, it's above average, and yet their 2nd year they started to show real promise. Their 3rd year they grew on that, and their 4th year they really established themselves. Okay? Everybody follow? Yes?
Yes.
Quitting it. Okay, so who is Daniel? Daniel right now, just to put it in perspective, Daniel and Chandler are SMDs. They give up a big, strong exchange leg, and they're $100,000 a year plus earners. Okay? Now let's look at Quentin and Rachel. Who are Quentin and Rachel? SMDs, and they are 250 plus earners, $250,000 a year plus earners. They both work. Daniel was a missionary before he started with us, an international missionary. His father's a pastor, and Rachel and Q both worked at a grocery store in Colorado called King Super. Rachel worked in like the produce section, and Q was like the produce manager or something like that. Like combined, they made like $60,000 a year income combined. Now they're making over $250,000 a year. So, how does a $250,000 a year earner get started in our business? Well, the first year they got 6 recruits in the year, 1 every other month, and they wrote 5,200 points their first year. That's about 400 points a month. That's like a $20 term app per month. Is that good or bad? Is that good or bad? Really bad. Like, that's bad. Like, you certainly would expect, like, these people will never make it. They're clueless. They're not figuring it out. They're not learning. There's no hope for these people. God bless you, David. In the next year, they go to 10 recruits, almost one a month, 69,000 points. Now they're doing about 5,500. So they're doing like in their second year, they're doing like 2 apps a month. Their third year, same, 11 direct recruits. Notice this. Notice it's the same. There's no base shot going on at all. Until here, and then it goes back, right? Until here, until they're 40. No base shot whatsoever. It's all them in the first 3 years. Probably not. Obviously not. Yeah, and that happens. That happens.
Maybe not fast started properly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a skill. It's a process. And that's what I'm trying to help you guys to understand. And they do about 8,000 points a month. Now they're up to about 3 to 4 apps a month. In their fourth year, they do 13 direct recruits, 88,000 points, 120 in team. Fifth year, they do 30 direct recruits. And look at how their numbers change. They get back to a career best personal, but they almost double their team's best. How? Because they front loaded it here. Okay? 16 direct recruits, personal production falls off. 16 base shot production falls off, right? Why does it fall off? Because the recruiting falls off. Then they go 12, 96,000. You can just see it's normal variation. They get it up to 50 here, best year ever base shot recruiting, best year ever production. 29 directs, 88,000 points. 91 base, best year ever, 183,000. But watch, so you're like, well, why isn't it the best year ever here when they almost doubled their recruits? It comes the second year in this case. The production follows the recruiting, right? They go 12 here, so they did 41 directs over 2 years there. By far the best personal production year ever, 207,000 points. That's a lot of personal production.
Yeah.
What is that, 18,000 points a month? That's a lot of personal production. On an SMD contract, I'll let you do the math. I mean, that's 12 grand a month just from your own production, not including anything from your team. And they kill it with 371,000. So here's what I want you to think about. There's a lot of you who you look at your first or second year in the business, and it looks exactly like this.
Right.
And here's what happens. You're beating yourself up about it. You're allowing that to create irrational thoughts like Tim was talking about earlier about like, I'm not so sure I'm cut out for this. I'm not so sure I'm going to be any good at this. I'm not so sure this is going to work. And then if you're not standing on the facts that this is a great business and I can do great things here, then other people around you begin to go, man, you've done this for a year or two. Like, you gave it your best shot. Like, nobody's going to fault you for quitting. Matter of fact, they're going to go, look, Don, we know, like, you're a successful guy. It's not you, it's the company, clearly. Look at how much you put, look at how many meetings you went to and calls and trainings and all the work you did and you got those licenses. It's not you. Clearly, it's the company, right? And people are saying that, and that, like, makes sense if you're not standing on what you know to be true. If you have a short-term perspective, and it's like, here's what I put in, here's what I got out, it looks like all of those explanations totally make sense. Those become the facts. Are they the facts? No. It's part of the process, right? So some of you have people that could be $250,000 earners with us on your team, and you're focused on this.
Right.
Instead of what's inside here, who they are, what they're capable of. Like with your children, when they're like, all they're doing is crapping all over themselves, peeing all over themselves, drooling all over things, putting things in their mouth that don't belong in people's mouths. Like, they're not communicating the way like rational people communicate. All they do is like cry a lot and belch and fart, right? And you go, well, this kid's never really going to be successful at anything because they don't know how to really communicate with people or function properly in a civilized world.
Let's throw it back.
So, like, I'm just going to give up, like, trying to parent this one because clearly they're not getting the hang of it. You would never do that. Like, you see the gifts and talents in your children and you're constantly trying to pull them out and you're trying to get them to see what you see. And I don't care if you're 80 and your kids are 60, you never stop that process. You always, like, because you see, like I was talking about Tim and his wife, like Tim's wife is always going to see like the best that he has to offer. The difference between being a manager and a leader is, leaders see it here in the business. You've got to keep treating this person despite, not based on their numbers, based on who they are and what's possible. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes? And sometimes it takes a while for things to begin to show up. Allison Ferguson said something once that was genius. I probably don't have to give her credit anymore because I've used this more than 3 times. I think you have to give the person credit 3 times, and after that you can pretend like a church, right? Okay? That's the rule. Check the internet. It's clearly the rule. So Allison said this. Mammals, all mammals, one of the characteristics of being a mammal is that mammals give live birth. They don't lay eggs, right? They give live birth to their young. Yet the gestation period for all mammals is not the same. The gestation period for a litter of kittens is much different than a rhinoceros or a giraffe or an elephant. But they're all mammals, but some it takes longer for them to be ready to be born unto the world. Some it just takes longer. They just start here. Some are like kittens or rabbits. They come out real quick, right? Nice. They come out real quick. Most are within this normal range of variation, okay? You picking up what I'm putting down?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Mark and Dina Onstadt, $300,000 plus a year earners, completely financially independent.
Yes.
They don't know anything on it. Well, they just bought a property in the mountains in addition to their custom-made home on 5 acres in Colorado. Their net worth is quickly approaching $2 million. And for the majority of their career, Mark has been $100,000 to $140,000 a year earning for the majority of his career. So it's not like he's been making $300,000 for 20 years and that's how he became financially independent.
Right.
He was good with his money. He practiced what we preach, right?
Right.
So he's an EMD, not an SMD, he's an EMD. That's probably like a kind of guy that you'd like to have on your team, yes?
Yes.
So Mark's part-time with us for 5 years. How many of you know somebody that's been part-time for 5 years? Oh, well, there's no chance of them making it, right? If they've been part-time that long, they just don't want it bad enough. They haven't figured out how to go full-time. They're just sort of like playing around with this thing, right? No chance they'll ever make it, right?
Right.
That's what some of us sort of tell ourselves, right? In his 5th year, here's his numbers. 4 direct recruits the entire year. 50,000 points. He's been doing this 5 years, and he writes 2 apps a month in his 5th year with us, part-time. His team does about, including his 4, his team does 1 recruit a month outside of him, and they do another 2 apps a month outside of him. So he does 2 apps a month, his team does 2 apps a month. At this point, he's been at American Airlines 13 years. He's got a salary, he's got a pension in 7 more years that he'll get guaranteed. He's got all the health insurance benefits. He's living in Torrance, close to the airport, right? Dina's parents, his in-laws, what do you think they think about this little part-time deal he's doing that's taking him away from his wife and his children on Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings?
Huge mistake.
Why are you doing that?
Yeah. He's gone on like some Monday and Tuesday nights, some Saturday afternoons, running kitchen table. He's spending all his money going to this goofy thing in Las Vegas in the summer,
5 years
right?
already.
Like he's been doing this 5 years. Like, hello, this is like you're a mechanic. This isn't really your cup of tea. Great that you tried it. If he would have decided to quit that, do you think his in-laws would have like supported him or thought it was dumb?
Yeah, great.
They've probably been biting their tongue the whole time, and the minute they go, and he goes, I'm thinking about quitting, they go like, praise the Lord, we've been praying for this day for 5 years, right?
Right.
If he would have said, Dina, like, I think maybe, instead of doing this, I'm going to try real estate, or I'm going to go back to school and maybe finish my degree, or get a secondary degree, or I'm going to double down at American Airlines and really try and maybe get promoted and make us a little bit money that way. Nobody would have questioned them. Matter of fact, the only time that people would really sincerely question them is if after 5 years this is all he's doing, he decides to stay here. That's questionable.
Right.
But leaving isn't questionable. Choosing other options isn't questionable. But Mark and Dina stood firmly on the long-term vision that they had for their life, not short-term where the results were. Most of us pay attention to the present day, the present week, the present moment, where we are financially, where we are relationally, where we are with our health, or we look back to some time in the past that was either better or worse, but we don't spend near enough time focused on where I'm going, what it's going to be like, and obsessing over that. They weren't focused on where they were focused on where they wanted to get to, and where they wanted their family to be, and what kind of a life they wanted to be able to create for their family. So you know what they did here? Instead of quitting, they doubled down. He went full time this year. Like, that's scary. They sold their house in Torrance and moved to Colorado. In Colorado, they knew Mark's sister, Rachel. I just showed you her numbers. And their brother-in-law, Quentin, who worked in a grocery store. That's the only people they knew in Colorado. They sold their house, bought there. He went full-time and moved. His next year, with his back to the wall, coming off of 5 years of nothingness, he does 8 recruits, really killing it. Rachel and Q were 2 of those, so he really did 6, right?
Right.
And 117,000 points. He does 10,000 points a month personal, his best year ever. His little team now does 22 recruits outside of him, and they do another 5,000 points. Now you begin to see the Rachel and Q effect. The next year he does 12 recruits, his team does 36, they do 152 as a team, then he goes down to 9 and 99, but the team gets up to 58 and 241. Best recruiting year ever, best production year ever. Follows it up with another solid production year, another solid recruiting year. Then watch this. Doubles his recruiting numbers, and look at how much his production numbers go up. He is the self-proclaimed poster child in WFG for hope. That's what he calls himself. I'm the poster child for hope. Like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. He's like, I'm not proud of how long it's taken me. He's like, nobody's going to be inspired because, like, oh man, I want to do it just like Mark. But the fact of the matter is, if you stay in it and stay intentional and stay focused on the big picture, no matter what the first 5 years look, or in Rachel and Q's case, like it doesn't matter what it looks like there's still a possibility of it working out if you stay focused on getting there, right? Can I give you another?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Oh. All right, let me give you a couple more. So, oh crap, I need to get my glasses for sure here. So, 3 and 44K, 3 and 47K. 4 and 69K, 4 and 96K, 6 and 90K, 6 and 113K, 4 and 72K, 4 and 154K, 2 and 45K, 2 and 104K, 0 and 33K, 0 and 54K. Okay? Anything, as you're looking at those numbers, does anything peculiar jump out at you?
There's no base shop.
Well, there is. There's base shop production,
But there's no team being built up.
but there's no base shop recruiting outside of what the individuals recruit.
Yeah.
So remember how earlier Deanna was talking about, I know I've got to take care of my family, I've got to raise my children, I've got church responsibilities, I've got these 2 people I need to care for, there's other, right? She's like, I know I've got all those things handled every day. I wake up and think about what can I do to grow my business, right?
Right.
Yes?
Yes.
So it's about being intentional and being focused. This producer, their intention and focus is a production focus. It's not right or wrong, it just is what it is. And a production focus, I'm getting my people licensed and teaching them how to sell and training them, right? But I'm not building them. And I'm not building myself, so what happens is year after year this sort of pattern repeats itself.
Right.
Okay? Now at any point, just like we saw with Mark, that was consistent with Mark too. At any point, like, we can begin to do this and learn how to do this.
Right.
And get better at this by how? By being more, in other words, for the producer to make that shift like Mark did, what does the producer need to do? The producer needs to go, hey look, I already know that I've got the client thing handled. I already know how to run appointments. I know I've got tremendous skills there. I already know my product knowledge is top notch. I already know these things, so I don't need to put a whole lot of time and energy into setting appointments or being prepared for appointments or doing it, because I already know that I've got that handled. I'm good. Where I need to put my attention on is more discipline and accountability as far as making the calls, inviting guests, setting up one-on-ones, more recruiting and more building until I learn how to do that. And I can't worry about this other part of my business called production, because sort of like Deanne can't wake up every morning thinking, what am I going to do for my children? It's automatic.
Yeah.
At a certain point, the production part is automatic. You just don't need to think about it, and you have to trust that it's not going to go away. I mean, matter of fact, even when we focus on production exclusively, does that mean it continues to grow every year?
No.
No, like here it went down, and then it went down again, then it went down again. Does that make sense? So, focusing on it does not guarantee that it's going to grow. But, if we focus on recruiting and building, if that's really where our intention is that if that's really where our growth is, that if that's really where we're putting our priorities, the recruiting and building will grow. It may take longer than we want it to, but it will grow. And the magic of it growing, is this compounding effect.
Right.
Where once you get the hang of it, you're going to naturally find somebody who's good at it also, who picks it up quicker than you, who has a better market, who's more like the end perhaps. You're going to naturally find those people, and then you're still getting better at it, and they're helping you. So today, for example, my hierarchy does, on average, this would be like real averages, my hierarchy does on average like 1,200 recruits a year. And we do about 3.5 million points a year. Of which I do between about 70 to 150,000 points, and of which I do from about like 8 to 15 direct recruits a year. So without me, pretty much this whole thing continues to go. Because early on my focus was on this part of it. And now this part of that machine continues to go with or without me. How many of these people do you think I present to as guests? How many of these guests do you think I close? How many of these one-on-ones do you think I do a year? How many of these interviews do you think I do a year?
8 to 15.
Like an insignificant percentage. If I was doing them all, think about this. That's 2,400 hiring interviews, right? So 2,400 hiring interviews would be 200 a month, right? It'd be 50 a week. Yeah, that's not what I do. So it keeps running with or without me, right? Let me give you a similar comparison. Somebody whose numbers look really, really similar in the beginning, and then they sort of take off. So year one is 1 recruit, 4,000 points. 1 recruit, 4,000 points. You've got these two people in your base. 3 recruits, 44,000 points. 1 recruit, 4,000 points. Who do you think is going to make it?
The 3 guy, the 44,000
For sure. For sure, right? So let's look at the next year. 2 and 53,000. right? And 2 in 56,000. Who looks better now?
Still the dude that's producing.
Still this one, right? Yes? No? You guys follow me?
Yeah.
Let's look at year 3. 9 in 58,000. 9 and 107,000. Who now? Still here. Still here. Almost twice the production here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Personal and the team production is about the same. Yeah, but 3 recruits over the year? Like that's a difference maker? Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, I'm not being rude. I'm just like, would you rather have 3 recruits or like 32,000 more points? To me, just the way it sort of shook out here, it's pretty clear. So then let's look at what's the next year? 8 and 92,000, and 8 and 125,000. Who now?
Still, well.
Still to the left, right?
Yeah.
Still to the
team
left.
wise, yeah.
Still to the left. So their careers are pretty much mirroring each other the first 4 years. In my mind, they're both super smart, they're both talented, people love them, they've got great people skills, like they both want to win, they're both hungry, like all those things. None of those things change, right? Next year, 11 and 118, and 89 and 226. Now who?
Right.
This one, this one, this one, this one, now who won?
Right.
Why would you say the right this time?
Base.
Base what? Yeah, really the big significant difference to me is the base recruits. Now the base production is quite a bit higher. So you could say, like the untrained eye would go, well, you look at the personal recruits 2 to 11 and 45,000 to 118. But to that, I would just say that's normal variation.
Right.
45,000 to 100,000 points difference personally per year. Aubrey?
No, Jim.
Jim? Jim, you're 1, 2. So, to me, I would just say that's normal variation. I can't choose who's better over 1 year. That's just pretty much normal. But what isn't normal variation is those 89 recruits and 226,000 points, especially the 89 recruits, because if we look at what's outside of normal variation, clearly this is for all of these other numbers. Make sense? You go from 8 or 9 or 1 or 2 to 89, that's a big jump for that person's normal variation. And then the next year is 12 and 58K and 140 and 342K. Who's now? Still right. Clearly the right, these last 2. First 4 years, they're identical. In first 4 years, really, they're identical. Really, the person who goes on to be more of a career producer, their numbers are better. But this is a game. Now, by the way, this could have happened in year 1. It could have happened in year 12. It's never too late to shift your focus.
Right.
It's never too late to make a commitment to double-digit recruiting and really getting after it. It's never too late to make that commitment to, I'm not a good inviter, I'm not a good prospector, I'm not a good recruiter, I'm not good on the phones, I'm not good at building people, but I'm going to learn this skill. Because once we learn this skill, it has these tremendous compounding effects that the production never has. Here's what I find in studying the numbers. Those people that took more of a career personal producer long-term, there's completely normal variation. In other words, the people who you can see looking at the numbers, you know the person, like, have decided, I'm going to be a career person, like, I'm interested in appointments and apps, and I want recruits. They never say I don't want them, but you can tell by their behavior and their results that their primary focus is apps, clients, and making money. Right? You can tell it, right? Here's what I found for most of the SMDs and most of the ringers in my hierarchy. 70,000 points on a bad year to about 150,000 points on a good year. And here's what I found. Most agents that pursue this and get better over time, they're able to achieve within this normal deviation between their first to their 4th year. So it takes about 4 years on average, now some people do it faster, but about 4 years on average to be able to produce somewhere between 6 to 12, 15,000 points a month.
Do they ever, no matter how many years they're in business, do they ever get beyond the far right, the 100?
Great question, great question. Here's what's fascinating to me in studying the numbers. In studying the numbers throughout my whole hierarchy, I've got close to 40 SMDs that we've promoted over the years.
20 years numbers.
Right? It takes on average 4 years to be able to consistently produce in this range. For the people who continue to focus on production for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, no, the range remains the same. They'll have an outlier year over here occasionally. Occasionally they'll have a year where they do 200 or 225,000 points. They get a couple of big cases, get into a better market, but then the very next year they fall into the normal range. Occasionally, for whatever reason, the economy, their health, there's things going on in the person, occasionally they'll have a blip over here too. It's just normal. 80% of it's going to be right in here. And 20% will be here or here. But what's fascinating is no matter how much time they put into becoming the product guru, the client guru, it never really exceeds what they were able to do in the first 4 years. Monty Holm taught me something years ago that you've heard me repeat, but my own analysis gives it merit. He said since the 1980s, life insurance industry has had tremendous breakthroughs in the products, the features of the products, the costs, the riders and the benefits, training techniques, marketing techniques. There's been massive improvements in the industry since the mid-80s.
Right.
In every conceivable way. Just like every industry's progressed a lot since the 80s, with the exception of maybe carburetor repairs, right? Whatever some of the millennials said.
Yeah.
Yet, despite all of the improvements in the life insurance industry in training and products, the average production per life licensed agent has remained virtually unchanged going back to the 80s. So the key is, if you want to produce more, it's not about learning more about this or becoming better at this, it's about getting more licensed agents in your business and on your team that are independent of you. That's the way it works, right? So, can I show you, by the way, can I show you one more?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a rabbit. So, here's the rabbit. This one will blow your mind, but it also, I think it paints a very, 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 very important picture. Okay? So, their first year they do 23 directs, 88,000 personal points. Pretty good first year?
Yeah.
Yes? 20,
Yes.
like 2 directs a month, 88,
He's wrapping up.
okay, you should have pressed the doorbell. We got a doorbell now.
Oh,
Oh, well, he's wrapping up, but he's got the only get. Okay, so we're good. And their team does no other directs, but their team writes a little bit more business, 104,000. Okay?
Okay.
Clearly a rabbit. Year 2, 22 directs, 323,000 points.
Year 2.
Right? And 221 base recruits, 437,000 team points. Where do you think these 323,000 points come from in their second year? From all these base recruits. Like, how many people do you think, after the first year of recruiting 23, how many of these do you think are actually licensed and independent field trainers? There's a limited number. People quit.
Yeah.
People are unmotivated. People don't get things done. So there's a limited number. Now all of a sudden you have almost 20 recruits a month in the second year coming through your base shop. They're writing a ton of apps, and my guess is the majority of this extra 110,000 here is probably matchup that they're putting through the new agents, right? Then they go 24 directs and 79K. Why does their personal production go down? At this point, they're probably overwhelmed with the size of their organization, how fast it's growing, the new leadership issues and challenges that they're learning their way through, and they've got more independent people to handle the business, okay?
Okay.
257 base shop recruits, 375,000. Then we go 15. They really slacked off. Only 15 directs that year, 70,000 points. 271 base recruits, 595,000 points in the base. Then they go 20 directs and 28,000 points. And they go 535 recruits in the base, 906,000 points. Then they go 22 directs, 81,000 points. Then they go 694 recruits in the base, 660,000 points. That's what we call a rabbit. That's different than all the other ones I showed you, even Daniel and Chandler's, isn't it?
Right.
Yes.
So the base shop numbers and the points going up and up and up, that's evidence that, I mean, aside from the chaos of all the people, they're making independent people of them.
Yes.
They're running it.
Yes.
Okay.
Now can I show you something that's that will hopefully shift things for all of you? Yes? Can I
Yes.
get it
Yes.
for 5 more minutes?
Yes.
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 Okay. This is really important. Might be the most important thing I said. So, this person here that starts out like this, right? Wish we had a good grade. This person that starts out like this. One recruit, 4,000 points in their first year. And believe me, when I talk about spending hundreds of hours with this person the first year, it was hundreds of hours. 1,000,000 questions every time I talked to the person. And there was no texting, so it was like, you know what, sometimes when like somebody's talking to you and your eyes are just rolling in the back of your head, you're like, oh, right, it just all becomes like, oh, right?
Yeah.
Like, hundreds and hundreds of hours. Hundreds of hours the second year. Once again, they're not doing much. Hundreds of hours the third year. Once again, they're not doing much. Fourth year. By the fourth year, I've literally invested thousands. This person is young, out of the market. They started in their early 20s. They're completely out of the market. They had no real business experience, really, of any sort whatsoever. And I'm pouring into them. And you know why I'm pouring into them? I'm not like, oh, this is a waste of my time. I'm like, you're going to make it. You're unbelievable. You're great with people. People love you. You've got tons of credibility. You're great at teaching people. You're great at articulating ideas. You've got such a natural enthusiasm about you. Those are the reasons that you're good. I'm talking them out of quitting every other time I see them. They've got people that are filling their head with doubt.
Right.
And I'm pouring into them and pouring into them because I genuinely believe in them despite what their numbers are telling me, despite what 4 years of us being together is telling me. Imagine if this is a relationship. Imagine if you're dating and you're getting no results in the first 4 years. Like you start going like, maybe this isn't the right one for me. But leadership is more like parenting. It's more like raising children. To me, there is no quit. In their 5th year, they begin to break through. In their 6th year, the first year they hit double-digit recruiting. I want you to listen to me on this. The first year they hit double-digit recruiting, who do you think they recruit?
Da da da!
That person. I believe 2 things, and I believe them with every fiber in my body. Number 1, that if they don't get here, they never find this person. Because it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. They never find this person. Number 2, if they happen to find this person in any of these years, they never become the rabbit. Because the leader doesn't have the mojo, the swag, the recruiting numbers, the sense of indifference, all of the things that are important to challenge a rabbit, to help a rabbit become a rabbit. So, number 1, I don't believe they even find this person or recruit them or attract them. But number 2, if they did somehow in here, because some of you have had those experiences with people who could be really huge with us, but you're like, they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
Sometimes the teacher's not ready. The student shows up and the teacher is not prepared to teach them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You're not prepared to lead them. Why? Because you haven't learned to effectively lead yourself. You haven't learned to organize your time in a way and to discipline yourself into doing certain things in the day to make your irrational thoughts congruent with your goals, to make your behaviors day to day congruent with your goals, not your feelings. When you learn how to lead yourself, then from the inside, it's an inside-out game. When this personal growth process, all of a sudden you start seeing the external manifestation of the growth on the inside, and then all of a sudden you attract somebody like this. Can I share with you one more thought about this? Remember, you sure I can share one more thought with you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
So, I'm going to bring back a blast from the past real quick. Photos, albums, here we go. Bingo. Mirror it. Tell me when it's up.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that guy?
Yeah.
Remember that guy?
Yes.
Okay? He's the waiter. He's the waiter, right?
Oh, one of the
So-
son of a.
So I'm making hundreds of calls. I'm making like 18 or 20 grand a year here. I'm full-time. I left a $134,000 a year job. So I leave a job making 134, and I come here and I make like, I think my first year I made 32,000 bucks or something like that, roughly. So at the end of that year, if I would have quit, you think my wife would have been disappointed in me?
No.
You gave it your best shot, you're smart, you've been successful other places, not you, babe, it's the company. But I stick it out. So I bypass another year that I could have made 134K in the corporate world, right? And the next year I get it up to like 70 something. We'll call it 76K.
Okay.
A lot of people in my ear are like, hey, maybe you should finish your master's, maybe you should go, like, you're making a lot more money. It was, by the way, when I'm here, I'm working 8 hours a day in an office that is gorgeous and furnished for me. I've got a huge support staff. They're paying for my expenses, my meals, and my car allowance. Here,
Wasn't it?
I'm working 70 and 80 hours a week. I'm paying for my own little dumpster fire of an office with a particle board desk from Home Depot. I've got no support staff. I'm paying for all my own meals and all my own gas. Same here. Third year, I could have made another 134 if I didn't get any better, and I finally get up to like 108. Most people, when they get their ring here, they're like, oh, it's an unbelievable achievement. To me, it was like, I've been making 100 grand for a long time. It's not that big of a deal to me. I'm not even back to where I was. I'm in the hole at this point. What? 100 grand, another 60, so that's 160, approximately 200 grand, 3 years in, not including expenses, not including time that was, right?
I feel you.
Yeah, okay, well, you'll feel me better when you start putting in 70, 80 hour weeks like I was here, okay? I don't think you're quite there yet. I'm not talking about 70 or 80 hour months or quarters, I'm talking about weeks. I'm making hundreds of calls, why? Because I'm looking for the right people, okay? Getting back to him, his dad's name's Scotty Benton. I leave a message for a Scotty Lynn Benton on his home number. His wife picks up the message, calls Scotty at work. Hey, some guy just left you a message. Sounds like it's for a job. He calls me back. I close him over the phone. He's coming down Monday for a one-on-one at 5 o'clock. I've got, because I'm making how many calls?
Hundreds.
How many calls?
Hundreds.
Okay, don't be afraid to say it.
Hundreds.
Hundreds.
I've got a 6 and an 8 that night. My 6 is in Yorba Linda. I can't stick around for a 5. So Chris Kramer, who's happens to be in the office, a colleague of mine, I say, hey, I said, what you got going on? He's like, I got a 6 o'clock coming into the office. It's a fast start. I said, hey, this guy's supposed to be here at 5 for a one-on-one. His name's Scotty Benton. Will you do me a favor if he shows? And here's what I know, because I'm making how many calls?
Hundreds.
Hundreds of calls. He's probably not going to show. Why? Because no matter how many calls I made and how good I was, most people don't show up for one-on-ones. Most people don't show up for guests. So I'm expecting him not to show, even though I closed him really good.
Yeah.
Just because the numbers say he probably won't, no matter how convinced I was that he was going to. So I run my appointment. The guy leaves work, comes in for what he's expecting to be a hiring interview. Kramer's like, oh yeah, Schloeman said you would be here. Here's a brochure, it'll tell you about the company. We're having a meeting tomorrow night at 7. Come back, you need to have on a jacket and a tie for the meeting. Totally blows the guy up. Now, in the back of this guy's mind, he's like, I thought I was showing up for a professional interview. This place is a dumpster fire of an office. This guy totally disrespected my time. It wasn't what they said it was going to be, right? I got some stupid brochure and they want me to come back for a meeting. I already know what that means. That's code word for like no way in HE double hockey sticks.
Right.
But he was dissatisfied at work and the timing was right against his own natural inclinations. He shows up for the stupid meeting the next night at 7. We had meetings on Tuesday nights at that point, like he does now. He goes to the BPM, I close him afterwards, he comes back for a hiring interview the next morning, I hire him, I schedule a fast start the next morning at his house, we fast start him, we make some calls, set up some appointments and some guests, he becomes a client, $300 a month BUL at the time, he didn't have IULs. So, I hire Scotty cold. He goes on to earn his watch with us. I'll get to that in a minute. He hires a co-worker by the name of Robin Hudspeth, who's in the same industry as him, workers' comp. She hires her daughter, Keisha Walker, who worked for Fredericks of Hollywood, and her daughter, Kiana. We're like the first 2 hires. We're going through their warm markets, right? I'm fast starting these people, making the calls, inviting closing people. Keisha hires her longtime best friend since childhood, Lori Holopoff, who some of you know as Lori Fenelon. Lori recruits somebody by the name of, she recruited a bunch of people, but by the name of Pablo and Hazel Murillo. Right? Pablo and Hazel recruit somebody by the name of Stephanie Aguilar that works with Pablo. They work for some sort of union job. Stephanie is out in West LA at a Fridays on a Friday night. She's in the women's bathroom, okay? And there's somebody there, and she's taught to like prospect as you go, talk to everyone, right? And so she prospects this lady in the women's bathroom. Now, Don, I don't recommend you do this, even though it worked out well for Lori, okay? It's a bad recommendation. Fitzroy, maybe. Don, definitely not, right? So the girl's like, she's prospecting me in a bathroom. This is weird. The girl intentionally gives her a wrong phone number. She's like, this is weird, right? Girl's an RN. She's got a professional job, right? They're walking out of the bathroom after washing their hands together, and Stephanie mentions something about we're looking to hire and train brokers for a company. Broker turns out, for whatever reason, to be a magic word with this person. Person comes down to the BPM in Torrance, gets recruited on. Her name is Melinda Blue Taylor. Oh yeah, after she hears the word broker, she gives her the right phone number, follows up, yes, right? Scotty Benton, $50,000 watch earner, wins the Hawaii trip, qualifies for SMD. Right? Robin Hudspeth is with me for a period of time. Keisha is. Lori goes on to be a 6-figure income earner passively for years with us, and an SMD. Pablo and Hazel were senior associates that earned their ring, their $100,000 ring in the base shop. Not as an SMD, they earned a $100,000 ring in the base shop as a senior associate, not even as an MD. I think Stephanie was a senior associate. I think Keisha was an MD. I think Robin was an associate, maybe a senior. Scotty quits. Robin quits. In fact, Scotty goes back to, as his son told me, the same industry that he left, that he couldn't. He left to go with another guy of mine, Eric Davis, long story, to a small broker dealer called Money Concepts, a little gimmicky deal. And 3 months later, Scotty was out of the business and back in the industry that he hated. And from what his son said, 18 years later, he's still there. Okay. Keisha went back to her same industry. Robin went back to her same industry. Pablo and Hazel, after making $100,000 in the base, went back to their same industry. It's just like he was used to making $55,000 a year. When he's making over $100,000 a year, like he was so coachable and so hungry in the early stages. His head is so big he won't listen to anything I'm trying to tell him. And I see the writing on the wall. I see what's going down. There was blind spots and holes in his business that the cash flow was covering up. He
Okay.
couldn't see the holes in his business because of the cash flow. I could because of my experience. And he wouldn't listen to me, and he didn't make the adjustments, and it caught up with him. And so he had to leave, he went back to his old industry. Stephanie quits, Melinda stays, Lori stays. This is Lori, this is Melinda,
Wow.
okay? I want you to hear me on this last point I'm gonna make. Scotty, S&D, watch earner, wins a trip to Hawaii. How many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours do you think I poured into this guy over the years that he was with me? More than you can imagine. More than any of you have probably poured into any one person in your business ever. And he quit on me. How many hundreds of hours did I pour into Robin and her husband Phil? Countless. They quit on me. How many did I pour into Keisha and Kiana? Hundreds and hundreds of hours. They quit on me. How many did I pour into Pablo and Hazel? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, and they quit on me. Stephanie, hundreds of hours, and she quit on me. But she stayed, and she stayed. That right there brings me 50 plus recruits a month. And on average, probably in the neighborhood of 125 to 150,000 points plus a month. So we tend to focus on all the time I wasted on people that are quitting in your business. And for some of you, it begins to create these facts like Tim was talking about earlier, like this is a waste of time. I'm better off just spending my time setting up appointments, getting better at the products, closing people, and making money. Because all this time and energy I'm putting into all these people is a waste of my time because nobody wants it as bad. Nobody does what they say they're going to be. They're not coachable. They're not hungry, blah, 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 blah. I poured into each one of these people like they were the next Melinda. And as we've been through, you can't tell who's the next Melinda, you can't tell who's the next Mark, the next Rachel, the next Daniel, the next Dean, the next Steve, the next Ricky, the next Jim, the next Steve. You don't know. So you pour into them, understanding in the beginning that most will quit on you. But some won't. And the ones that don't will wind up bringing you. Like, look now, you can't imagine if you look at the number, the thousands of people that have quit over 20 years, but now, whether I do anything or not, I'm going to have 100 recruits a month, and I'm going to have 250 or 300,000 points come through my business, not because of the ones that quit, but because of the ones that stayed. And the ones that make it big time, God bless you. The ones that make it big time, sometimes they're a rabbit like Daniel or Melinda, but most of the time, they're a wolf in sheep's clothing. Most of the time, you don't see, from a result standpoint, till 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years later. And you've just got to understand that. All of these people that quit on me, it was more and more opportunities for me to develop my leadership skills, pouring into people, building people, challenging people. Like I kept all of those experiences and all the skills from it, even if I didn't keep the person long term. And by the way, their clients rolled up to me. By the way, Lori rolled up, now she's direct to me instead of being 4 generations deep. Now Melinda's 2 generations deep to me as opposed to being like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I wouldn't even get paid on Melinda's business if all these people stayed. Because we pay 6 generations deep and she's 7. So, I just want you guys to look at things from a long-term perspective. Don't prejudge people based on the results. Don't stop believing in people. Don't stop developing your leadership skills or pouring into people. And don't beat yourself up if you're not where you think you should be because you've been here a few years.
I had somebody tell me just last night, find out, like, and this is a lot of WFG, I've been here for a while, I did everything they told me to do, blah, blah, blah. Brought people in, and when it didn't work out for the people I brought in, it broke my heart. Well, all this is saying is you've just gotta have a stronger heart, and you just have to bring more people in, because the sample size from the person I was speaking to was so small, small. I mean, in comparison to this, and it's just, get over yourself, be like Deanne.
It's true, like, that's the challenge that most of us run into, is we make decisions, we create beliefs and expectations based on very, very, very small sample sizes.
Right.
It's last thing, for sure last thing. Airplane going down the runway is gonna exude tons of energy through the engines, tons and tons of energy, and it slowly starts picking up speed as it's going down the runway, but it's still exerting a ton of energy as it's going faster and faster, right?
Right.
It gets to the point where it starts lifting off, it's still putting out like tons of energy as it's lifting off. Have you ever been in an airplane on a window seat and you're looking out, and you're like, this thing's freaking going slow motion. I'm afraid we're gonna start going backwards. It seems, it's putting forth incredible effort and energy, and yet it feels like it's going slow motion. When it reaches proper flying altitude, they can throttle back and much less energy just maintain altitude. The foundation stage of this business, where you're developing the knowledge and the skills and the habits, you're putting out all this energy on the runway, and it seems like you're getting nowhere, because you're just going down the runway farther and farther, and there's no real progress, it seems like, as far as your results. You're putting out all these meetings, calls, all this stuff, it doesn't feel like I'm getting anywhere. Then, when you've got the habits, and every day you're making calls, and you've developed the skills, you know how to overcome objections, you're sitting down across the kitchen table, you begin to have the product knowledge and the mindset, then you're in the takeoff stage. And it's like, now I'm putting the work in because I've got the habits and the skills, and it feels like I'm going in slow motion. Like I'm putting out all this energy, it just feels like I'm barely crawling up. At least I'm making progress now, but it feels like I'm crawling up. Then you hit this stage, and it's way easier. You got 30 people showing up to meetings, you're doing double-digit recruiting, everything is just easier. But getting to 30 people showing up to meetings and getting to double-digit recruitings is like the runway and the climb. For a lot of people, it takes 5 years to get down the runway. It takes 5 years to climb here, right? 5 to 6, and then it's here that they take off. You can do it faster. I've showed you people that have done it faster, but like, you've got to understand, when you're looking at your results on the runway and then the takeoff, it's going to be frustrating. But once things start compounding, they get out of hand. It's like if you do an illustration for somebody that's late 20s, putting $300 or $400 a month away in an IUL, it's going to take them 20 to 25 years of saving before they accumulate $1 million. And then literally 6 or 7 years later, they got 2. And then literally 3, maybe 4 years later, they have 3. Once this compounding effect starts kicking in, things get massively easier and the results massively go up. But you don't get any of the benefit of that in the early stages. So you have to understand that. Be urgent about getting through this runway stage. Be urgent about getting into the takeoff stage, okay? Sorry I went late. No time. We went way too late. Sorry I went late. I sincerely apologize. I hope you got something that's going to help you with your business today, this week, and in the second quarter. God bless. Sign up for conventions, spring season, and all that stuff.
All right. Yeah.